But we have to start at the Etihad. Manchester City against Arsenal. The two favorites for most people to win the Premier League. Last year, Arsenal went there and parked 3 buses and got a result. This time, it still ends in a draw, but with a lot more drama.
Yeah, and I don't know how that second half looked on television because I was privileged to be there in the stadium. Maybe on TV it looked a bit boring because of the attack v defense, the siege of the Arsenal goal, and the fact that at some point they had 7% possession in that second half. But in the stadium, it was epic. It was incredible. I thought the Arsenal performance at 11 against 11, where they were the better team, despite conceding early in the game, and then at 10v11 when they defended for their lives, they defended really deep until the last second, pretty much really denying City, which is a bit of a travesty because City are 11 against 10 in their own stadium, should not have to wait 45 minutes in that second half to score 1 goal or even to create something. But in the end, I think that draw was, I don't know, I think frustrating for both teams because City would feel like it was frustrating to play against an Arsenal team like that in the second half, and Arsenal would feel frustrated because they were so close of winning.
We're going to second guess because, hey, it's Monday morning. That's what you do. With the benefit of hindsight, what the two coaches did, because I thought there were some interesting points. Obviously, Pep having to redraw his game plan as well with Rodri coming off early in the game. But I just want to get you on two of the more sort of contentious moments. One, Calafiori's beautiful goal, which infuriated Kyle Walker and Ederson and so on. Now, if for those who haven't seen it, the referee had called both captains, Walker and Saka, to have a word with them. And then Walker felt the play restarted before he had time to get back into position. Does Kyle Walker have a case?
He has. I think he has. I expected Michael Oliver to blow his whistle for Arsenal to be able to play that free kick, just to wait for Walker maybe to go in position. However, Kyle Walker turns his back to the ball, which you should never do at any level ever.
That's inexperience. Come on.
And he's just jogging. Instead of even sprinting. If he wants to turn his back to the ball, he can if he wants to, but at least sprint back into your position instead of just jogging and telling his teammates, I guess what the referee just said. So I think they have a bit of a case. Like Pep said after the game, which was absolutely fair, he said, even if Kyle is not back into his position, we have to shift, somebody has to take his position, and we have to be more ready for that free kick, especially, as Pep said, they know, and he's told the players before, and that's why he's so mad. Right. Because he said, I told the players before the game, Arsenal play everything quick if they can. So be ready, be aware, be switched on. And what do? They switched off.
He took it out, of course, on the chair that he was sitting on. Which, by the way, he hit it so hard. First of all, I thought if the referee sees it, he's booking him, which I guess the referee didn't see him. But there's no VAR for that kind of thing. But the other incident, which of course changed the match, turned into the siege we saw, was Trossard's second yellow, which led to his red card. I'm not 100% sure. Do we know for a fact if he got it for the foul on Bernardo Silva or for kicking the ball away?
Kicking the ball is the new,
No, I understand that.
VAR official Twitter account.
Right.
So they explain everything.
They explained that it was for kicking the ball away.
Yeah. Wasting time. This is where I've got a problem with the wasting time. Bernardo Silva is on the floor. So the referee is very likely to call up the doctor to come. So wasting time for what? City would have never taken that free kick straight away, because Bernardo Silva was on the floor after the clash with Trossard. So I understand if the free kick is about to be taken like Declan Rice against Brighton. Right. That's proper wasting time because you kick the ball away, that's a few more seconds. But when a City player is already on the floor, needed clearly treatment or the doctor or something, the game is going to stop. So that ball, whether that ball was on the floor, in the stand, there's multi-balls everywhere on the pitch. There's no wasting time there.
Yeah, it seemed like an odd one. I've heard explanations too that he wasn't wasting time. He was trying to pass to some sort of Martinelli run. It's the 7th minute of time added on in the first half when this happens. I expect a little bit more kind of common sense. I didn't think that was necessary. If you want to give it for the foul, and I think there was a case to be made there because I thought that was completely senseless and it was just to stop the play. Jules, I'm more interested in talking about some of the tactical decisions that the two managers made. We should. But we have to talk about the incidents too.
Even Arteta said after the game, he said, you haven't asked me any tactical questions in his press conference, only about the referee.
So, but we have to talk about some of these incidents and the way they were handled. Not so much the refereeing. And I want to start with the Gabriel goal, okay? Because we had a little discussion about this off air. The first part is the way you defend against. Obviously, the guy's now scored 16 goals. Obviously, he's a threat. You just saw him last weekend.
Yeah.
You had two near identical situations. One where he's marked by Doku.
Yeah.
And one where he's marked, the second one where he scores, where he's marked by Kyle Walker. Now, you explained that, well, this is because the player, you're wondering why Doku, why Walker, why not somebody bigger and better on him. And the thinking is that you're defending in a hybrid system. It's zonally. You've got your big headers of the ball further back.
Yeah.
The idea is that Doku's there basically to somehow block him, to slow him down, to break his stride, so he can't get a good jump on it. When the corner comes in,
which is a lot of teams do.
A lot of teams do it. It's a tactic. I don't think it's a tactic that makes sense, frankly, when you're playing against a specific player like Gabriel, because Arsenal can then adjust, right? Arsenal presumably have a set piece coach. I'm sure you'll tell me his name because I'm sure he gets a lot
Nicolas
of attention.
Jovet,
Because you can have an out-swinging corner, for example, which then Gabriel's going to win the header, and then he can head it back towards the goal, head it back to the second post. You can create, there's different things you can do. It's not like you've got one scheme, which is Gabriel running in, right? You can call something. You can call something different. So I don't think it's an open and shut thing. Certainly, both Doku and Walker with the weird hand check. Like, I understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's just like
unsettling
him.
I presume Walker's quicker than Gabriel in terms of first step over longer distances. I'm sure Gabriel's faster, or probably faster. How do you get your timing so wrong that he manages to run past them both times?
No, I don't know. I think
without even putting a body on them. Neither Doku nor Walker. I presume you've practiced this before, right?
Yeah. I think from Walker, especially Doku, again, this is not what he does. But
presumably he's practiced it in lead up to the game, because presumably City prepared and said, okay, Gabriel's good in the air. They do this type of scheme.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeremy, you go and do this.
But that's why, I mean, I don't know. I've got nothing like Doku, Walker. They're just there to really be a nuisance for. This is not. I don't think this is where the goal is decided. It's not on who is with Gabriel before Saka takes that corner. I've got more issues with Erling Haaland being at the near post when you know exactly, because that's what they do all the time, where the ball is going to end up at the far post. Why is Erling Haaland the tallest player in this City team in the near post? It doesn't make any sense.
I would argue what they're trying to do there is two things. One is he may be the tallest player. He's not the best header of the ball. And secondly, just having him at the near post means that you're highly unlikely to try a near post corner, right? So we say like, oh, they're more effective at the far post, and all the players are lined up. And if you look at this, the freeze frame, there's like 5 Arsenal players on the far post, right? That's fine. Other players should shift across, but having a taller center back he's obviously not a center back, but you know what I mean, right? At the near post means that really the only place you can put the corner.
But that's the only place where Arsenal want to put the corner anyway. Arsenal would never put the corner near post anyway.
So Arsenal never vary their corner kick.
But that's not what they do. This is not what they do. Their combination on corner at the moment is nothing to do with the near post. Right. So I just don't understand how City prepared for this game and thinking, we can put Haaland at tallest player. Whether he's good or not in the air, it's a body that is taller than all the others. Put him where all the big Arsenal boys are. Don't leave him there for no reason. Literally, what Haaland did was just looking at the ball, going over his head twice in 8 minutes, considering a goal.
It just has to be a very good delivery to miss out Haaland and be in the same place. I know Saka can deliver the ball very well, but you're still making it more difficult for his delivery.
I don't think so. I think it's just a massive mistake from a City point of view not to have Haaland, even just to be a problem for Saliba, Havertz, Calafiori and Gabriel in that zone. This is a zonal marking, so they can have the zones they want, all of them: Diaz, Akanji, Gvardiol and Haaland, because they're the 4 main guys to defend. Why would you put Haaland in that near post? I just don't understand it whatsoever.
Some people also took issue with whether Ederson was somehow fouled or impeded. He obviously had players around here, Martinelli on one side and forget who was on the other side of him.
Yeah, Timber maybe. But the VAR check said it for Martinelli. Are they called Theodoro? I thought his first name was Gabriel. But on the big screen, he said Theodoro something Martinelli. And I was like, who is
the dude's
Theo?
Brazilian. He has 27 names. They all do.
But yeah, VAR checked it for Martinelli's impeding potentially.
I have to say, just watching the replay, it seems to me that he is literally, he's standing very close to him. A lot of times when that happens, you have, for me, like, I tend to be, and maybe because I have a soft spot for Vicario, I tend to be more charitable towards goalkeepers. And I absolutely hate the way you get some, like, Neanderthal pundit off X-Pro in this country. Like, he's got to be stronger there. Like, what the hell does that mean? No, seriously, what does that mean? What, he's supposed to fly in the air? Like, whatever. But in this occasion, to me, Martinelli is standing there. He's not moving towards Ederson.
No.
He is literally standing there. Now, sometimes in the past, what you would see is, if the goalkeeper has got somebody close to him, he calls over a defender and they go and they wrestle and push the other guy away, whatever. Ederson doesn't do that. So I don't understand the logic for the foul. Surely Martinelli can stand where he likes.
True. I think because David James was sat not far from us, and he said this is a foul. Goalkeeping union, everything, right. Blah, blah, blah. But he said that Martinelli is just waiting there, knowing that Ederson is gonna run back to try to get to the ball at his far post, and Martinelli is there.
Sorry, can I jump in 1 second?
To block him.
David James knows the ball's going to the far. Going back to the point you were before about Holland, David James knows the ball's coming back to the far post, right? Because Arsenal always put the ball there. That's what you said.
No.
Should Ederson have also known that?
No. But when Ederson sees the trajectory of the ball, everybody knows it's for the far post. So I think Ederson is in the middle of his goal.
So why isn't he closer to the far post then to begin with?
Well, no, he has to start in the middle of his goal, guy.
Why is this another rule?
It's not.
No, but
it's not a rule. The goalkeeper starts a corner or a wide free kick in the middle of his goal. This is what everybody does.
Well, first of all, that's not exactly true. It depends on the positioning and so on. Some goalkeepers like to stay off center. But if, as you say, and look, maybe he's doing it to get a jump or whatever, he wants the extra steps. I take your point there. What I would personally question a little bit is, and this goes back to the Holland thing, where there isn't part of a bigger thing. If they think there is a legit threat that Arsenal are going to change it and put it at the near post, maybe that's why Holland is there. And maybe Ederson is also thinking, oh, look, we've countered it because we do think that there is a risk that they go to the near post, even though everybody's at the far post. And that's why I stand in the middle of the goal where, if need be, I can get to the near post. Did you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, maybe. I just think you stay in the middle of the goal to see where the ball is going, and if the ball is going into your far
post. And if there's a player there's no offsides on corner kicks. No. Martinelli can stand where he wants. And as long as he's not moving into Ederson.
That's true. I'm with you.
Set up your defenders better.
I'm with you. And Pep said after the game, he said, we know that the best team on set pieces in the world, and we should have handled that much better. He said it's such a challenge, and we prepared for it, but we were clearly not prepared enough because they scored, and they could have scored two because the first one, he has to score as well, Gabriel.
Yeah. I guess what really hurts is seeing almost two identical situations twice, especially when you know it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, future Arsenal opponents, Jules just said, the ball always goes to the far post.
Absolutely.
So bear this in mind.
Absolutely.
We have to talk about the Rodri injury because he's really important. I haven't had we're recording this on a Monday morning. I don't have the injury update. Do you?
No, I don't think. I think he would go today for.
I'm imagining we're not going to see him until after the international break.
It looked like he was in real pain, and Guardiola made a good point after the game. He said, "Listen, if he was not really in pain, he would have stayed on the pitch. This is Rodri we're talking about. He doesn't come off for nothing." So Pep said, "I think there must be something. Otherwise, he would have stayed on the pitch." And when you see his knee jarring, that's the word, jarring on his own. I mean, him and Partey are just running, and then his knee goes. I think it's not a good look. The fact that he walked out of the pitch on his own, I'm not sure that gives any indication because you can still do your ACL and still walk for a few minutes after he went straight into the tunnel and dressing room. I just don't know.
Say those three letters. I refuse to believe that it's not.
I hope for him it's not. But he looked in real like. In
terms of longer term impact to City, before we get back to tactical decisions, which Arteta wants us to talk about, right?
Yeah.
I kind of feel obviously Rodri's super important. you have other players that can play that role. Not as well, obviously, as Rodri. But in Matheus Nunes, in Kovacic, in Gundogan, who, going back in time, played that before he thought he was a number 10. I kind of feel like they have cover sufficient against most teams. And the priority should be give Rodri a long break if he needs it.
Yeah.
And make sure you have the best Rodri second half of the season.
Yeah, I think you're right. Rico Lewis can play midfield. John Stones can play midfield. So they've got other options. Nobody can replace the best defensive midfielder in the world, obviously. But they've got enough depth in that squad to make up for, let's hope, not too long without him.
All right, now let's go to the choices, starting with Manchester City.
Yeah.
Last year, you pointed this out to me when they had the 0-0. Pep did something which on paper I think would have made sense. If Arsenal are going to park the bus, no point having speedy wingers. Better to have my ballers out there that they can do a 1-2, win a foul, whatever, right? And he started without wingers. This time around, he goes in the opposite decision. You did your Nostradamus act pre-game saying like, I'm sure he's going to play with 2 wingers.
It's not Nostradamus. It just makes a lot of sense. It was a mistake for him last season to start with no wingers. You play against a team that plays so low, use all the width of the pitch. But you have wingers who go one-on-one, not Foden and Bernardo Silva playing wide, who all they want is coming inside and are not good in one-on-one. Is not what they do. They don't have the pace. They're super skillful players, but they're
There's
not
no
wingers.
Space for them to run into. So look, I take your point. No,
if
right?
you create a one-on-one on the side for 2 wingers,
yes, and you want a free kick or you beat your opponent. No, I get that. I think I have less of an issue with what you did last year. If your idea is you want to control possession, take take the sting out of the game, maybe slow things down a little bit, and try to get there with the intricate passing, and then you chuck on the wingers when the fullbacks are tired. I think that's more of a standard strategy, I think, than starting with the wingers if you think Arsenal are going to park the bus, because you're not going to have any space to run into. And you don't have KDB, which I think is another big thing. I mean, De Bruyne, a big absence. Bernardo Silva, great player, but obviously he's not Kevin De Bruyne. That part, to me, coupled with the fact that Gundogan, other than hitting the post, I thought had a quiet game. Those two things together suggest to me that, if, again, Captain Hindsight, 2020, I don't know it was the right approach for this game.
I think it was completely the right approach. I think he had to start with wingers. We saw Savinho's impact straight away on the first goal. Doku, Timber defended really, really well. And the only thing I would say about the wide players and the wingers, I thought Guardiola would bring on Grealish earlier than the 78th minute. And when Grealish came on, it was different for White, who then played right wing back, if you want, or whatever, when Timber came off. It felt like it was a different challenge for White than Doku. And Doku was a little bit predictable again, whereas for Grealish, and the goal comes from Grealish anyway. Grealish makes that goal. He gets the corner first, and then he makes the goal on that corner playing quickly. So I would have brought on Grealish earlier, but I think he was completely right to start with the 2 wingers because, again, that was the width that they didn't have last season that they really lacked, that this time was there, plus all the half spaces used by Bernardo Silva, and then on the other side too. So for me, it was the right approach completely. And to be fair, for the first, until the Rodri's injury, it worked well for them. After that, they lost control of the game.
Yeah, Rodri getting injured, minute 20?
Yeah.
Do we think Phil Foden's not fit?
I just think he had a short, Pep, a bit like Rodri. This was Rodri's first start. Foden hasn't started yet because I think they came back probably a bit injured from the Euros, quite late as well. And you just need a bit of time because it's such a long season, as you said. Don't rush them in when you have all that depth in your squad. I don't think they needed Foden so far, really, to start again. They've been.
We say it's not such a long season, right? But equally, it's been. I mean, Euros finished 10 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah.
I get it. You need a break and so on. I don't know that it can just be a fitness thing. I would imagine there's some sort of injury that needs to heal or whatever. Because again, I'm all for resting players, too many fixtures, but you do need them. And I think you could have needed a fit and proper Foden against Inter as well when you were held at home. Yeah. That Inter game.
So he came on at halftime against Inter.
Yeah, he comes on in the second half and stuff. But it's a different situation. The reality is that that Inter were only the second team, I think, in something like 2.5 years to keep Manchester City to a clean sheet at home.
Yeah.
I just think two big back-to-back games. And look, even if they'd lost to Inter, which was highly unlikely, and they could have still beaten Inter, it's not going to impact probably where they finish in the Champions League.
Sure.
But this Arsenal game was big. And had they lost it, it could have been a different momentum to the league at this stage. In terms of Arteta, Ben White dropped. Were you expecting this?
No, I didn't see this one coming. I won't lie. I think White hasn't been good in the last two games, the Brighton game and the Spurs game. At right back, and I think there was a big desire from Arteta to see Calafiori at left back. And Timber did well against Spurs, and I think Timber at right back makes sense. He's right-footed. Calafiori at left back, even if he was a bit naive, completely naive on the first goal and made a mistake, he made up for it with his wonderful goal. But I think this was the idea very much, and I wouldn't be surprised if this back four now, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, is the one going forward for Leicester at the weekend, for the PSG game in the Champions League as well.
Look, I know Timber's played as a defender for most of his career, but he's basically a midfielder playing in defense, right? I mean, it's everything, his physical profile, whatever, right? I find it interesting, whereas Ben White is a center back playing right back. Is there a bit of a shift there in the approach? I mean, you want Timber to step into midfield more? I feel like if you have Timber, between Timber and Calafiori, you have two guys who can come across and be that extra passing midfielder. And maybe you can keep them off balance a little more in a way that you couldn't do with White. If this is what you want to do, if you want to move away from essentially the four center backs. Yeah,
it's interesting because in the warm-up, Arsenal, so the way Arsenal was warming up, at some point, Timber, Saliba and Gabriel warmed up the three of them on the same line with Calafiori ahead of them, like if Calafiori was stepping up from left back into midfield, and did that drill for like a good 5 minutes, passing the ball, doing the triangle with Calafiori, then playing long, and then starting again and again and again and again. So I wonder if in Arteta's mind, Calafiori is the one, a bit like Zinchenko used to do, coming inside, and Timber staying a little bit more as a third centre-back, which, you're right, would be maybe a bit more surprising than if he was White. I don't know. I guess we've just seen not against Bolton on Wednesday in the League Cup because it's not going to count. But then certainly at the weekend against Leicester, and then maybe even more against PSG next week on Tuesday. How or the way Arteta sees that back four and who plays and where and what they do in possession.
All right, let's get to Arteta tactics, because in that second half, you were there, a glorious siege. I didn't find it boring. I just accept that, you got to come up with something.
Yeah.
It looked to me like, I think they took 28 shots in the second half, which I think is the second highest shots on goal in one half ever.
Half of them were by Akanji, Vardiol and Ruben Diaz.
Yeah, so not necessarily the guys you want to be shooting from. And I think most of those were from outside the box, right?
Yeah.
So it looked to me like there was no real answer. And I kind of felt, right, well, you have Haaland there. I know heading isn't his big thing, but equally he's really tall and he can get up there, and he scored some good headed goals as well. And he had one crazy leap in this game. I was a bit surprised he didn't mix it up a little bit more.
Yeah,
it seemed like you're so confident if I play the percentages, I've taken enough shots at some point, I will get that lucky bounce and the ball will sit up for me and I will score, which is ultimately what happened, right?
Yeah, you're right.
I agree with you on Grealish trying to get the one-on-one, trying to win the free kicks. You've got a lot of good headers of the ball. City are no slouches on set pieces either, certainly attacking set pieces. But what surprised me from Arsenal's point of view is at some point you've got Martinelli who's playing as a fullback, right? And he's running himself into the ground. Yeah. And every time Arsenal, I think they had 12% possession in the second half, every time they had the ball, they just couldn't get out.
Yeah.
And part of the reason you can't get out is your furthest forward is Havertz, who's got to do a ton of defensive work, and he's there on his own.
Yeah.
Why not, and I tweeted this out, why not have, Saka's come off, why not have a speedy outlet? Why not bring in some fresh legs, maybe in the Martinelli position? We saw Jesus come on at the very end, and you pointed out he gave the ball away, fine. But I was surprised it didn't happen sooner, because ultimately you want to keep them on. You don't want to give them the luxury to have 10 guys lining up at the edge of your box, which is essentially what City had.
Yeah, the only way I see it, I think it must be really hard to come on in a game like that to start with, and also for a coach when things are working out well because City were doing nothing with the balls.
Well,
and
you're taking a million shots.
Yeah,
and you know any one of those shots, Raya can spill it, anything can happen.
But having Sterling or Gabriel Jesus there is not going to prevent them from shooting anyway. They're always going to shoot.
Yes and no. I mean, there's different things you can do. You can try to be bolder if that's what you want to do, and try and have him, rather than playing left back, you can have him play more central and try to run around and disrupt the build-up. You can try that. Most of all, I think what you can do is when you win the ball, you look for him, and even if it's just 2-3 times, he gets the ball and he wins a foul or the ball goes out of play, you reset and you can move your defense up again.
But they will still shoot anyway.
But then that's fine. But you're limiting the number of shots because they're not camped out in the final third. It's just that.
Yeah, but it would have been minimal. I think I think maybe it's hard when you're Arteta and you're there.
I'm sure it's hard.
But what I found fascinating...
By the way, let's be clear on this. I'm not second-guessing Arteta. I'm just saying these are decisions that coaches have to make.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
It's interesting. And look, he knows this was the other option. He's not a fool, and he chose one option. That's why...
What was fascinating was Pep said after the game that he doubted himself in that second half. He didn't know what to do. He said I didn't know what... The changes, I didn't know if I should put Ruben Diaz on the right instead of Walker central. He said I didn't know where the players should be. He said we tried to put John Stones there to go with Haaland in the mix, really. And I find that fascinating because this is a drill that you do every day at training, pretty much, where you have 4v3, 6v5. So for the extra man to count, just in case one day you find yourself 11 against 10 or 10 against 9 or whatever. So you make the extra man count. You try to jump a pass because every time you pass the ball, somebody from the opposition is coming out to prevent you from shooting. So you jump a pass. And yet City was slow in the transmission. All that second half, it was far too slow, far too pedestrian at time. So even Pep said, I didn't know what to do really. And I find that fascinating. And I wonder if it was to be the same for Arteta. What do I do now? Because this is working for now. City are not scoring. We're still 2-1 up. If I change something and Gabriel comes on, but it's just not in the rhythm of this game, makes a mistake, we concede a goal, and then I said, I should have left Martinelli because he was in the game and we were really blocking City. So I just don't know. But that's what I found fascinating about that. For me, it was one of the best games I've ever seen live. It was amazing.
I wasn't there.
Oh yeah, it was
quite
just
go
incredible.
that far. In fact, I saw.
But because I've never seen anything like that, and nobody has. You've never seen two title contenders playing like that, 11 against 10 for 45 minutes. It's a long time. For 10 minutes there, but like that, two teams of that level and talent, it's just amazing. For me, it was fantastic.
It certainly was different. Final point on this, David Raya. In that, as you know, I've been critical of him in the past. I think this season he's come on really big. He's made some big saves. But in that long spell of all the shots, I'm sure he must have made more than one save. I only remember the one save from the Holland.
He has two on Gvardiol. He had the header on Haaland and the shot from Walker on him, and then the two Gvardiol volleys.
But how tested was he really with really difficult saves?
Yeah, no, because most of the shots were blocked.
And that speaks a lot to
target.
To the way I think those 45 minutes went.
Yeah, and also for Erling Haaland's 100th goal in 105 appearances for Manchester City. This is just monstrous. It's what Cristiano did for Real Madrid. Nobody else has ever done it in the history of the game. It's an incredible return. And he hadn't scored in 3 games for Arsenal. So I think he was good. And it's a cheeky finish that I liked. Good run where he stops and goes again, not to be offside. I know he didn't do anything else in the game.
No.
But that moment, and for him to get to 100 goals in 105 games is ridiculous.
And 0 goals in 2 games against Francesco Acerbi. Just saying. All right, enough City and Arsenal. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, Gab.
Christian Pulisic leads Milan to a 2-1 win in the Derby della Madonnina, with Matteo Gabbia scoring the late winner. Jules Paulo Fonseca's 4-2-4 gamble pays off.
Yeah, boy, he needed that as well, didn't he? I mean, I won't lie. I didn't see this one coming at all. After seeing Milan being battered by Liverpool in midweek, where you were in the stadium, I thought, okay, Inter, who were so solid against City and played well collectively, etc., back to their probably strongest 11, right? Everybody was there. Lautaro was back starting. Pavard was back starting. You had Mkhitaryan, Çalhanoğlu, Barella, all Di Marco, Dumfries, everything. I'm like, okay, this could be bad for Milan, and yet I thought they were really good.
I think it's really awkward to play against a legit front four.
Yeah.
Tammy Abraham and Alvaro Morata. All of a sudden, you've got two big guys, which means that even if you play a front, if you have a back three, you don't always have the spare man in the same way. Pulisic, I thought, was on fire. One of the best players. I mean, Tammy Abraham, probably for me, was actually Milan's man of the match.
Yeah.
Reinders as well. Tremendous.
Especially in the midfield too as well, where you need to do so much work.
Exactly. Because obviously that's what you sacrifice in your 4-2-4. And Matteo Gabbia, Milan fan.
Amazing goal.
Okay, he wasn't born in Milan. He was born near Varese, but it's 20 minutes away.
He counts.
He used to go to the games with his grandfather, who was a Milan season ticket holder for more than 50 years. I mean,
beautiful.
This is special.
Beautiful. And Gab, what about Inter though? Simone Inzaghi was very honest after the game, saying that they didn't look like a team.
That's the thing about Simone Inzaghi. When he gets down, he gets way down. Look, I don't think Inter were that bad. Were they outplayed by a Milan team that were desperate and hungry and needed to sort it out? Yeah. Is it difficult? I think when you have a certain approach, you play the front two. You're used to everybody you play against generally play 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. In this setup, when you're playing, and by the way, we'll say 4-2-4. This wasn't 4-4-2. This was 4-2-4.
Yeah, they were really
because
high on the same line.
Leao.
Yeah.
It's not like Leao's going to come back and retreat back. I mean, Pulisic harder working on the other side. It does mess you up, and I think they lost a bit of rhythm. I think those guys who did play against City, that took a lot out of them mentally as well. And by the way, Fede Di Marco, best left back in the world. It's a short list. It's a short list.
Not sure about Inzaghi's substitutions either. I'm keen on substitution, and we talked about Arteta and Guardiola before. I'm not really sure those after an hour worked really for them.
Barcelona rolled to a 5-1 away win over Villarreal. Jules, they blew this apart in the second half, and I know you want to celebrate the Lamine Yamal assist.
So beautiful, the Trivella, if you're
a fan of Ricardo Quaresma.
Fan of Quaresma, the outside of his left foot, or your right foot if you're right-footed. For Rafinha, incredible. I mean, Lamine Yamal is the best player in the world right now. I know he's only 17, and I know this is only the beginning, and I know there's Kylian and Haaland and whoever you want. Lamine Yamal is the best player in the world right now. There's just no debate. He's just on another level. It's just incredible. And what he did in this game again, I mean, the fouling. I mean, at some point, they will need to look into that, because the more this is going to go, and I don't think Villarreal is a dirty team, but my God, at some point, I feared for Lamine of an injury or something, because they were going so hard on him. So I hope he gets the protection that he deserves. I'm not saying let's go soft and etc., but you need to protect Lamine Yamal. It's just incredible performance from him, really. I've got no more words.
Lewandowski also scoring 2 goals, playing well. I'm just so impressed with
I agree. You're right.
with what work Hansi Flick is doing.
Yeah. And Gab, sticking with Barcelona, the bad news though, Marc-Andre ter Stegen suffered a bad knee injury, and sources are telling ESPN that he'll be out for months.
Look, this has been the story of Barcelona, right? Next man up, right? You've got so many injuries, Araujo and Gavi, and De Jong and Fermin Lopez and whatever. But Christensen. But I think that the Ter Stegen one, I'm tempted to say this is more serious, because he's got such a leadership role, because he's so much better, with all due respect, than Iñaki Peña. But you know what? Hansi Flick pulls these guys out of a hat. That guy starting in center back for Barcelona, Sergi. I'm like, oh, what? Did the left back from the 1990s come out of retirement? No, it's some other dude, right? He's 19, first ever start. Boom, Villarreal away. Yeah. Here you go, enjoy. Gerrard coming in at left back. It's like, oh, look, Alejandro Balde had to be rested. I understand that. They find so many resources. I don't want to write them off. But on paper,
they can have a joker, right? They can have a joker.
No, it's a joker. This isn't France.
I know.
Joke this.
Remember when they signed Braithwaite because they didn't have any forwards, so they had him as a joker from Leganés or wherever he was playing.
I don't know. They can sign a goalkeeper who's out of contract, and I guess, rescinds his contract. Not David De Gea, obviously.
No, obviously it's taken.
All right, Jules, we not done. More quick hits. Darwin Núñez makes his first start and scores a tremendous goal as Liverpool beat up Bournemouth 3-0. Luis Diaz, bit special too. Jules, is Slot gaining confidence in him?
It's interesting, Gab, because I didn't really expect him to start in this game.
He's got to start at some point.
I know, I guess, but Jota, there was no reason, even if Jota hasn't scored in the last few games, maybe for Slot to not be happy with Jota. Maybe he just wanted to rest him a bit. It'd be interesting to see who starts going forward now, because Darwin, I thought, played really well. You see the goal that he scored, the finish is great, but before that, there's the flick for Salah for the one of the 1-2, and then he finishes really good on his left foot. It's one of those super hard chances that usually he scores, and then the easy one that he's going to mess it up. But we see certainly it's good for Slot to have another of his forward on good form. We say Gakpo played really well against Milan. Luis Diaz is on fire. Salah is Salah. Jota, okay, maybe not as good as the others, and not Darwin. So well done and good win to bounce back for Liverpool.
Last 2 seasons, he's underachieved expected goals, I think by 5 or 6. It's funny because Slot said, "Oh, what do you want from him?" He says, "Hey, I want goals." Of course, he's going to say that, right? I think Darwin Núñez can be so disruptive even when he doesn't score.
Yeah,
and maybe he has a future as another option out wide. Yeah, although the wingers, of course, are pretty good.
Yeah, Manchester United are held 0-0 at Crystal Palace on Saturday. I guess if your glass is half full, Gab, it's 3 clean sheets in a row for them. But if it's half empty, maybe not so good. And Gab, were you surprised that Marcus Rashford didn't start this game?
I was surprised by the fact that by not starting him and by saying what you said pre-game, you're making it a thing.
Yeah.
I went back and I listened to Erik ten Hag's pre-game interview where he talked about Rashford's lifestyle last year and he sorted it out and now he's doing much better. Now, the problem is I know he's not a native English speaker, but in that interview he switches between past tense and present tense, right? So he says, he goes like, well, he needed to get more serious with his football. I'm paraphrasing here, right?
Yeah.
Then he says he needs, and he's bringing it back into the present. This just lends itself to confusion.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a big deal he didn't start, but dude, Erik, you need to be clear, and you, Manchester United, have to make sure that Erik ten Hag is clear. Erik ten Hag is not a public spokesman. He's a football coach. That's what he gets paid for. When he has something to say, you have to make sure that it's very clear so that you don't get another Rashford case, because we had, Jamie Carragher and others kind of making suggestions that there was something going on, and there's a bad history there. So you want to avoid that at all costs. Real Madrid rest Vinicius, go a goal down to Espanyol, bring him on, and he scores and delivers a beautiful assist. Not as good as Yamal's, but pretty darn close.
Still very good as well with the outside.
Jules, is this a sign of Vini dependency, or kind of just how the game went? Because I thought they were really good before Vini came on.
Yeah, I thought the first half was okay. I still expect more from them. It was slightly different with Adagula starting.
He's more balanced. Bellingham was good.
Yeah, he was good. And I thought Kylian was okay. It's funny because in L'Equipe, if you read L'Equipe, this was Kylian's best performance. There's a goal and an assist, although the goal is again on a penalty. If you read the Madrid newspapers, it's like he lacks efficiency. He had 2 good chances, especially the first one in the first half. Should have scored more. Watching the game and covering for ESPN, it felt like Carlo changed and rested Vinicius because he said we need more control. So at some point, he will need to find the right balance and something that really clicks. But you need Vinicius, Mbappe and Rodrigo clearly to win this game, because it's when you brought Vinicius on and you had Vinicius, Mbappe, Rodrigo and Bellingham that you play your best and that you scored 4 goals and that you won. But the dilemma is, I'm not sure you can go far, especially against big teams in the Champions League with that front 4. I think something will have to give.
We've said that. Something does need to give. That's something.
But then when you don't have that front 4, you're 1-0 down against Espanyol at the Bernabeu.
You can make substitutions and bring people on, but I don't think, again, I thought they were clicking well. I thought they could have scored a couple of goals. Courtois, made his error of the year.
Yeah.
He doesn't make many, but that was it. And I think that kind of shifted the mood. But I thought that setup was actually pretty solid. But yeah, Vinicius is a value add, no question.
Yeah. Sticking with Real Madrid as well, last week you talked about players who complain about too many fixtures and that maybe they should take less money and play less games. And it's strange that Carlo Ancelotti pretty much agrees with you.
Yes, Ancelotti says if that leads to lowering salaries, the aim is for players to play fewer games. So I don't think the players will have any problem lowering their wages if they play less. I swear to God, I did not tell Ancelotti to say that. I did text him and say funnily enough, that's exactly the point I made last week. And it's pretty obvious. If you go beyond the bleeding from the morons out there greed, FIFA and UEFA, blah, blah, blah. You realize it's a simple equation. Clubs are losing enormous amounts of money right now. It's not a good situation for them. And that's why they want to play more games to get more revenue. So there is something. And this only affects the real elites. Maybe this is one way forward. Paris Saint-Germain are held to a 1-1 draw at Reims as my boy Ousmane Dembele has to come off the bench to get the equalizer. Jules, did Luis Enrique get this game all wrong with his funny lineup?
I think so, Gab. It was so bad to watch. I mean, Wednesday was not great against Girona. Second half was much better. And it was just a win right at the end, an own goal. And this one was not much better. At least they didn't lose. But
they could have lost. There was a chance at the end.
Yeah. I don't know. He says he's very happy. It was everybody's doing great, but he keeps changing and changing and changing again. I don't know. And Barcola again was poor, really, really poor. So I don't know. They need to pick up that form for the weekend, but then it's Arsenal next Tuesday at the Emirates, and that's not going to be easy. So they started really well, and the last two games were just too complicated.
And as we'll see later, they're sharing first place now.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Michael Olise show for Bayern Munich. Gabi has to travel to Werder Bremen and push 5 past them, 2 for Olise with 2 assists. Werder had how much expected goals in that first half?
0.00. That has been
no shot
on goal once in the general direction of the goal.
Yeah.
I am so impressed with Olise. I mean, you could see he was always an eye test type player, but the guy is so calm.
Yeah.
And even, 2 years ago, he only scored 2 goals. He still delivered 11 assists. He's so unselfish, but also has such personality, such intelligence. I think it's gonna be difficult for some of these Bayern wingers to get back into the key team, whether it's Gnabry or Leroy Sané. Tottenham bounced back from their defeat in the North London derby with a 3-1 win over Brentford as Dominic Solanke opens his account. An injury-riddled Brentford side, I might add.
Yeah.
Jules, were you impressed?
So I was impressed by some parts of their game because they created a lot of chances and Maddison played well. They had a good momentum going forward with the ball. However, again, we go back to the same thing. Brentford could have scored easily a second goal. They scored very early in the game. Terrible defending again. They could have scored goal. 2. Great goal by Mbomo, although I think he shins it.
All right.
But still great. And they could easily have conceded 2 or 3. So we go back again to the balance. But this was a big win, especially on the back of the one at Coventry.
It was such a chaotic game.
It was just so open. It was just
Brentford
mad,
games can often be like that. And look, but this suits Spurs, but they're not going to be playing in these circumstances all the time.
That's very, very true. Nico Jackson scores twice, and Chelsea destroy West Ham away 3-0. Gab Maresca has won all 3 world games this season.
Yeah, I don't know how relevant that is because they haven't always played well. Look at the Bournemouth game.
Yeah.
But they played really well, I thought, in this game. And Nico Jackson, I'm really we've had his critics. I still think he's raw. I still think he can get a lot better than he is now. But he's really grown. And you know what's interesting about Nico Jackson is you talk to the analytics nerds, they say, people who play a lot of minutes at a young age, that's who you want to bet on because they're battle tested. Nico Jackson never played a lot of minutes before coming to Chelsea. I think he had 1 top flight season and even then didn't play much, half of it. He comes in, people talking about, they need stability to grow and a good team, good environment around him. He had a toxic environment around him last year. He did not have a good team. And yet, he's found a way to grow. And that's on him. And he's always had the personality and the athleticism. Now we're seeing this maturity, this better decision-making. I am impressed with him, and hopefully that continues. Yeah. Bayer Leverkusen need a late winner from Victor Boniface to get the 3 points at home against Wolfsburg. It's the usual buzzer beater, Jules.
Yeah.
But Granit Xhaka wasn't happy after the 4-3 win. This was not a good performance.
It was not a good performance, and red card as well for Wolfsburg, which is the template that we saw a lot last season. For example, 93rd minute winner by Boniface. Maybe I guess there was the Champions League 2 on Thursday night. So
that's why he has the bigger squad.
Yeah, that's true. But again, not good enough overall, especially defensively in that game.
And Xabi Alonso says, I know what we need to improve.
Let's see, because they have Bayern at the weekend, of course, on Saturday. Ivan Juric leads Roma to a 3-0 win over Udinese. We're top of the table before the game in his first game as a Roma head coach. But Gab, the fans are still angry about De Rossi's departure.
They're really angry. And they're not angry because De Rossi is a club legend and the fans are stupid. They're angry at the way the club are running this and the way this was handled. Yeah. Just a reminder. De Rossi had lost 1 game in 4. He hadn't won any, but he'd only lost the 1 game in 4. But crucially, most of his signings came at the very end of the transfer window. He didn't have any time to work with them. They reacted really, really badly when he was sacked, and they took it out because they can't take it out on the Friedkins because you can't find the Friedkins. Yeah. And he never faced the media and they never talk. They took it out on Roma's chief executive, Lina Soluku, who she received death threats, and she's got 2 young children, and so she resigned. What really bothers me here is that nobody in their right mind thinks that Lina Soluku made this decision on her own to be mean to De Rossi. The Friedkins made this decision. She's just a CEO. Yeah. So she falls again. The way this club is run, I just don't understand it. Victor Osimhen delivers a delicious chested assist, and Galatasaray beat Fenerbahce 3-1 in the big Istanbul derby. Jules Jose Mourinho doesn't take it well and skips out on the post-match press conference. It's only September. Roma at least he waited a couple months before doing stuff like this.
Jose, what went on? You know how he got trolled by the Galatasaray social media account that called him the crying one?
Yeah.
What a game, to be fair, because Fenerbahce were really good. I think they were better than Galatasaray. They created more chances. They had higher expected goals, everything. They just could not score. Muslera made 9 saves or something like that, 8 saves.
All right, get to Osimhen and come on.
No, but I'm just saying Fenerbahce were the better
assist.
team. Yeah, great for Mertens. But Fenerbahce deserved to win. I don't care what Osimhen did. Fenerbahce were the better team. They deserved to win. I can see Mourinho's frustration after the game, but Osimhen was outstanding on that chest pass. We said the chest pass about Musiala for Bayern in the game against Zagreb. This was almost as good for Mertens.
This was better because it's Osimhen.
I think the Turkish league is going to be really, really cool this season. Cristiano Ronaldo scores in Al Nassr 3-0 win over Al Ettifaq this weekend and celebrates holding up 3 fingers. Gab, what does this mean?
So, apparently what it means, and we found this out because I suspect that there are social media people working for him who put this out there, that his son, Cristiano Jr., who is 14 years old and plays for Al Nassr's youth team, he scored 2 goals. So the 3 is supposed to mean that between them, they scored 3 goals.
Yeah.
Look, this is all just part of the media machine, and that's fine. I have no problem with it. Cristiano Ronaldo earned the right to go and do this kind of mediatic silliness and whatever. It's pretty empty. People enjoy it. But he's earned the right to do that. Just like, apparently, Portugal's mint, they want to mint a commemorative €7 coin to celebrate Cristiano. I didn't know they could mint their own coins. I thought the European Central Bank did that. But who knows? Maybe they asked. Maybe it's Cristiano. I think it's going to be a collector's item. I don't think you'll be paying for your anchovy sandwich or your bacalao with your €7 coin. Aston Villa rolled to a 3-1 win over Wolves, and your boy John Duran scores again in garbage time, but it's still a goal.
It's still a goal.
Jules, he's for real.
Yeah, coming off the bench again. I mean, the best super sub in Europe right now, no doubt. Incredible. And they came from behind too, Villa. I think their games have been so much fun to watch, like against Everton, where they were behind as well, and they came back and won at Villa Park. They're just such a good team, and when they got that momentum going, they're just relentless. And Morgan Rogers, I mean, what a talent he is. I really hope he goes all the way to the top.
And he's got a bit of nasty about him too.
Definitely. Juventus and Napoli battled to a scoreless draw. That was well boring. Gam, this was a dull game, as we said. But how surprised were you that Thiago Motta took off Dusan Vlahovic at half time?
He didn't just take him off. He took him off and he replaced him with, drumroll, Tim Weah.
Hey!
Now, Tim Weah, his dad was a phenomenal center forward. Tim Weah is not a center forward. No. He hasn't played center forward. I looked this up. He played a tiny bit of center forward.
Yeah, maybe second forward. I think more even than.
He's never done it at Juventus.
Yeah.
So it's certainly thinking outside the box, which Thiago Motta loves to do. I still think the impact of Thiago Motta on Juventus is positive. He's really shaking things up. And I think a lot of credit goes to, look, you're playing Antonio Conte team. They were totally tactically set up in a certain way. They moved to a back 4. They had McTominay playing this sort of weird hybrid role. And Napoli still had the best chance of the game.
Yeah.
And Juventus dominated possession. So Thiago Motta's like, I'm happy. We're moving forward. Okay, fine. But you don't need to be so weird about it. And you don't want this Vlahovic situation to become a thing.
That's true.
Because whether you like it or not, Vlahovic is probably your best player. Certainly the one who weighs heaviest on your books.
Yeah. And
he's the only center forward you have. Eric Milik got hurt before the Euros. Who knows if we'll ever see him again. Right now he's a virtual footballer. You probably don't want Tim Weah playing up front on his own. It's time. It's time. It's Texter time. Jules, the Olympico between Lyon and Marseille was a wild one. Is JT going to be as perplexed as I am about how you can throw away a lead at home against 10 men from minute 5? That's incredible. Right, 5 minutes into the game. Clever Clogs Belardi gets himself sent off. And then you manage to score an injury time equalizer with Ryan Cherky, who's really Italian, of course. And then you manage to concede in the 7th minute of injury time against 10 men at home.
Incredible. I just don't know how this happened, Gab.
It's not JT's fault. JT, if you're angry, we are with you. We were going to help you channel that texter rage, right?
It was incredible. I don't know. I mean, Ryan Cherki was really, really angry as well after the game, saying, we can't, this is not acceptable. We can't let a game like this basically slip through our hands, because they had it. When you lose a play after 5 minutes like Balerdi, and De Zerbi changed everything straight away, then he changed again at halftime, and to be fair to him, everything he changed later, even in the game, with Paul Lirola, who they wanted out, Ulises Garcia, who they wanted out, both of them coming on and scoring goals, and then Jonathan Rowe at the end, straight after Cherki's equaliser in the 93rd minute, with a wonderful goal to win it for Marseille in Lyon, after playing for 90 minutes with 10 men. It's just mad.
Right,
it was a mad game.
I only had this game up on my fourth screen because I had the derby, I had my Philadelphia Eagles, and I had Atletico Madrid up, right? But it did not look to me at all like De Zerbi was parking the bus, and like it wasn't a siege situation when they had the extra man.
No, they tried.
Not at all.
They tried. They played 5-3-1. They put Greenwood up front, and why he came off at halftime. He changed a few things because Lyon were the better team, and Lyon really created so many chances. I mean, really saved the penalty. It was so good in goal. When in the other goal, Perry was not that good, but overall it was just an incredible one of those wins that we're going to talk about in years to come, because Olympiacos are quite often very special. They made those games super special, but this one was one of the most special of all time. Incredible.
Marseille and Monaco alongside Paris Saint-Germain.
That's great.
Who do you fear most, Jules?
Still Marseille. I think De Zerbi have something they don't play in Europe. They've got a good squad now. They've added Rabiot, who didn't play in this game because he's just not ready yet. I think De Zerbi is great, and I think De Zerbi has been wonderful already for this football club and for this team. So them, and the classic is October 27th, so that's going to be very special.
Mark your calendars.
Stuttgart destroyed Borussia Dortmund 5-1. Gabi, Sebastian Hoeneß does it again. Or are you going to blame Nuri Sahin?
Well, I'm feeling charitable. I feel like I've blamed Sahin enough. It seems to be that his only formula to turn things around is to chuck on Jamie Gittins. And, hey, look, it worked in midweek after you got your backside handed to you by Bruges. Yeah. And then the guy comes on and you score 3 goals. Did not work in this game.
Not at all. I mean, they were behind after 4 minutes. So, already the game plan was...
It went out the window. Look, I know the defense is going to get all the blame, but that midfield... really all over the place. And it's not like Stuttgart's midfield is Xavi and Iniesta and Busquets, by the way.
True.
But I want to talk about Sebastian Hoeneß, because this is the guy who said 9 to Bayern Munich. Yeah. He stuck around, and I said, dude, you've done one miracle. Lightning's not going to strike twice. Not when you lose Ito and Valdemar Anton and Sergio Guirassy, who the latter two, of course, joining Borussia Dortmund. But no, I mean, they did spend some money on players who, let's face it, other clubs generally weren't too excited about it. Dennis Undav, you're like, okay, yeah, we'll take the money, And these guys, Demirovic coming up big again. Yeah. They're so organized.
Enzo Mio was amazing.
Enzo Mio turned in, I thought, one of the best midfield performances that you've seen. So he completely dominated. Nobody in Dortmund could get close to him. Yeah. So I think this is all in Hoeneß. And by the way, this is just 3 days after they had to go to the Bernabeu, where they outplayed Real Madrid for most of the game. Yeah. And that takes a ton out of you. And then you come back and you stroll past Dortmund. So impressive.
Really impressive.
With Hoeneß. The Women's Super League here in England kicked off. And we had some Arsenal and some City.
Yeah, a great weekend. It started on Friday night with Chelsea and Sonia Bonpastor.
Replacing replacing the great Emma Hayes.
The great Emma Hayes. From a Lyon, the French manager, from a Lyon manager and Lyon player, getting a win against Villa, playing well in the first half, not so much in the second half, where Villa goalkeeper almost scored right at the end, and then the big one was Sunday at the Emirates, 45,000 people watching Arsenal against City. Great game, controversy on the second.
What time did that kick off?
12:30.
Okay, so they made sure that the fans of both teams could go and then watch the men's team.
Yes.
They didn't have to choose. Okay,
yeah, but still, I think a bit of a shame that it's on the same day. That's all I would say.
You would think they could sort this stuff out, yeah?
Yeah, you would. But it was still great. Arsenal took the lead and were the better team, I thought, for a long time. And then City came back. Vivian Miedema, of course, who left Arsenal to go to City with a deflected shot to score the first goal for City. And then at the end, Arsenal with a controversial equalizer. But I think that already make it look like a great WSL season coming up. So really, really good. Bloomberg, Gabby, are announcing this morning, on Monday morning, that the Friedkin family, who own Roma, you mentioned them a few crickets ago, are now the leading contenders to buy Everton.
What? Passing who?
Passing who?
John Textor!
What's going on,
okay,
JT?
so a couple of things here. This is not clear to me, and this news is just broken. David Hellier, a tremendous reporter for Bloomberg. He knows his stuff. But wasn't Texter telling us last week he had an exclusivity period until November 30th?
He was just waiting, but it all looked good.
What I don't get is, does an exclusivity period means that if you're Moshiri, who's the man who really, really owns Everton, all with his own money, nothing to do with Usmanov, I thought exclusivity means that he can't be negotiating with the Friedkins. So we know they were interested before.
Yeah.
Unless the Friedkins had just said, like, hey, look, we know Texter's not going to come up with the money because he can't sell his Palace shares at a decent price, and he has to sell his Palace shares if he wants Everton, and this float on the New York Stock Exchange to get more money. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why they're super confident.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I'm not clear on this. Everton fans probably don't care about this. They want to know who between these two is going to be the better owner.
Yeah, and the answer is,
if you get the Friedkins, you will get a lot of chaos, but at least at Roma, one thing you cannot fault them for is they pumped a ton of money. And it's their own money. And this is the biggest thing. I was critical of the Friedkins. I think they've made some really terrible decisions. The massive turnover, especially in club executives, front office. Thiago Pinto, and now Lina, people coming and going. Guido Fienga, who's now at Al Nassr, working with Cristiano Ronaldo. All this stuff, right? But it's their money.
Yeah.
If they need to put in money, what do? They bring up their bank and say, hey, send me another 50 million. I'm going to spend it on this club. John Textor, I'm not saying he's not a rich man. Face Bank is fantastic. I use it all the time. But he's got investors. Yeah. He's got investors. He's running a different type of business. And at some point, he's going to have to show a return. So, like I said, I think they both make odd decisions. Difference is Textor talks a lot more.
You go with the money, right? If you had to go for one, you go for the richest one for sure, like who the money is there.
Yeah, I don't want to say the Friedkins are richer than Textor because I don't know for a fact, and Textor might not like it if I say that. But certainly they appear to be far more liquid than Textor is. And Textor, by the way, also owns 50 clubs around, not quite 50, but close to it around the world. So if you get the Friedkins, you're only going to have to share the Friedkins with one other club. What the longer term impact is, they're interested in Roma versus Everton, whatever, I don't know. And again, I go back to this. I find it remarkable because unless there was some miscommunication, Textor had told us that he had this exclusivity period through November 30th. But what it does mean is I think Everton fans, you're probably going to have to wait a little bit longer to get a resolution here. Atletico Madrid are held to a 1-1 draw by Rayo. Jules, this partnership between Julian Alvarez and the only living Sorloth in captivity isn't getting off the ground. And maybe it's because he keeps rotating his strikers every game.
I don't understand. Griezmann was rested. And and we saw it against Leipzig in the Champions League in midweek. If Griezmann is there and on form, this is when you win. This is when you play well. He take him out, and there was nothing in his performance at all. Really nothing. I just don't understand how they can go from being that brilliant against Leipzig for most of that game to this rubbish of football that we saw on Sunday night. It was really poor. On
paper, the Alvarez-Sorloth partnership should work.
Yeah, it should work.
Alvarez can buzz around Sorloth. Sorloth is also the big man who he comes back into midfield. He'll hold the ball up. He's not terrible with his feet. So he can do that. He can lay it off.
Yeah.
But if you play you're not going to play those two with Griezmann, are you? Unless he really has to.
Yeah.
So then what happens? I don't see how these pieces fit.
Newcastle United lose at Fulham 3-1, and Eddie Howe takes it on the chin.
Yeah, he said it was their worst performance of the season. I don't know. I think they've had one or two other bad ones. But you know what? Max respect to Eddie Howe coming out and you say we were really poor. And I wish more managers came out and did that and took responsibility, saying like, also, I was really poor. And not just throwing the players or blaming the referee. So, well done, Eddie. It's not often you see an 8-0 scoreline, Jules. It's even more rare that you get 6 goals before halftime.
Yeah.
You think Jim Ratcliffe will be delighted with this?
Yeah.
Or is he too busy with his other club?
No, I'm sure he's been watching. It was the club's 120th anniversary as well. And it's on Friday night, 120 years of this great club in France. And they put on a show. I mean, Saint-Etienne were obviously terrible, as you can imagine.
But
it was
6-0 the new owners, this new exciting group.
His family was
Ivan
there,
Gazidis.
not happy at all. Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
It's a long way back.
It's a long way back, and they hadn't been great before either. They only had one win. They won one game before that one, and going there being 6-0 down after 39 minutes, 6 goals in 39 minutes. You concede. It was just terrible. They were all over the place. And well done to Nice and Frank Hayes, and that would give them a lot of confidence.
Is the manager getting the boot?
Not yet, apparently. He's not under pressure, Delaglio, but I think he must be. And maybe
you give
just
up 6 goals
one
by
more
halftime.
game. Yeah, definitely. Last week, Leicester City and Crystal Palace drew 2-2, Gabby. But Leicester boss Steve Cooper said there was an awful human error with the VAR call, and he says he's got evidence.
Yeah, I don't... Okay, so this is an incident where you remember, I think it was for Palace's first goal. Mateta was flagged offside on the pitch. VAR reviewed it. They did the freeze frame thing because even though it's nearly October, we don't have automatic offside yet.
Soon, but not yet.
Semi-automatic offside. And he says he has evidence that they froze the images at the wrong time, and had they frozen them at the right time, Mateta would have been offside. Now, in the description I read in the Times, they said that the PGMOL, the Referees Association, that they are bemused.
Right.
They wouldn't comment. They said they are thought to be bemused. Bemused means, Steve Cooper, shut the hell up. You don't know what you're talking about. Which I think is a little bit unfair to Steve Cooper.
But what does that mean? They froze it the wrong... What? Not when the ball...
Yeah,
left
not
the
when the pass was played.
Right.
Now, the thing is, Steve Cooper, if you say you have evidence...
show it.
Then you need to produce the evidence, because otherwise these people will fob you off like you're some crazy person coaching for a team that's heading towards relegation, right? You can't have it. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look, maybe Cooper has a point, and if he has a point, he's right to voice it, but you have to follow through. Once you say you have evidence, then you present that evidence either through the media or through official channels. Although I don't even know if they have an official channel where you can produce the evidence. I don't know. Do you have an affidavit from somebody in the VAR room that tells you where they froze it? I don't.
Yeah.
Jules, I was super excited about Andy Carroll dropping down into amateur football to help up Bordeaux. How did he get on this weekend?
Well, he saved them already, Gab. First game against Chateaubriand. You don't know where that is. I don't know either, but it's somewhere in France.
Is it Chateaubriand? It's a cut of beef.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also a city. They have a team in the 4th division. They played in Bordeaux, who are back in the real stadium, if you want. And Andy Carroll scored 2 goals, one late to make it 2-2. And he looks so happy, and the fans loved him already. It's just such a great story.
Now, is it just a case, given that I imagine he's like 40 years old, that he just kind of stands in the middle of the penalty area, and he's bigger and stronger than everybody else?
The second goal is
and they just bounce the ball off him? Or?
No, the second goal is a corner, so he's good, obviously, as you know, good in the air. The first one, it's good movement and good finish. So let's see how many goals he's
Is he outrunning defenders?
No, but he never did when he was
younger. That's what I mean.
So yeah. But no, it'd be interesting. He should find it easy, I guess. The National League, the 5th division here in England, announced that they have a new cup competition where they will play against under-21 teams from the Premier League. Gab, what's the thinking there?
Yeah, for those who don't know, like me, because you're not interested in this stuff, the National League is what used to be called the Conference, I discovered.
Yeah, that's right.
Apparently their name changed years ago, and I had no idea. Anyway, so the thinking is that the under-21, the Premier League's developmental teams, they play in the developmental league against each other. And one of the criticisms has been, it's boys essentially playing against each other. A lot of them are very technically gifted and they play pretty football, but you don't have the physicality that comes from playing against real macho men. And that's why, if you remember, there was a plan a few years ago where Premier League teams were suggested, hey, why don't we play our under-21 teams in the League Cup? Yeah. Which then was shut down because the one thing the League Cup does not need is to be devalued and become even more of a joke than it already is. So I guess they'll play against the National League. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact. Because it's a knockout competition, so presumably they'll be. I mean, I think it's a knockout competition. If this is what they need, sometimes when you send them out on loan, you don't have kind of the same control over them. This is why teams send players out on loan. I think there might also be restrictions coming in soon on the number of even younger players you can send out on loan. So it all ties together neatly. From the National League's perspective, you can say, hey, look, I'm playing against Manchester United, even though it's not the real Manchester United. But what it does suggest is you may actually get bigger crowds for this, right? Because,
maybe.
I don't know. Can you name a team in the National League?
Yeah, plenty. I mean, obviously Chesterfield and Wrexham are the last two that went up. With Notts County.
Okay. I was going to make an example.
You've got York, you've got Yeovil, I think, are in the National League.
I'll mention Hayes, who I believe are in the National League. Maybe.
Yeah.
So if I'm Hayes and I get drawn against Manchester United, all of a sudden I'm selling out, right? Because all the United fans in Middlesex are going to come and they're going to want to watch the next gen. So that's fine. Bit more money for them. I guess it makes sense. Lionel Messi and Inter Miami travel to New York City FC, but have to settle for a point as the home team get a controversial late equalizer. Jules, are you surprised this game was not a sellout?
Yeah, I was a bit, to be fair. And
I mean, 44,000, I think, which is
still good. Yeah, it's still a lot. But maybe the
Messi effect wearing off.
I don't know. Maybe because he doesn't look fully fit and he's just coming back from injury. He was not good in the game. Maybe people thought he might not play, and that maybe had an impact. And they thought if he's not playing, I'm not going. I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was a sellout everywhere they were going. But clearly not.
While we're on Messi, our producer Freddie sort of is forcing us to ask this question. We mentioned Lamine Yamal before.
Yeah.
Is Lamine Yamal further along at 17 years and a few months than Lionel Messi was at 17 years and a few months?
I don't know. It's hard to compare the two, and especially the fact that Messi was in such a great team at the time with
much better
Eto'o
players.
And Ronaldinho certainly at the start when he was 17. That he probably didn't have to carry a Barca team like Lamine Yamal is doing right now. So it was a different approach probably. Messi was good enough maybe to have done it, but we never saw it because he didn't need to have done it. I just find Lamine Yamal's level ridiculous. Certainly with Argentina, Messi never did at 17 what Lamine Yamal did in the Euros at 17. 2, for example. But even Michel said it after the Girona game. He said, I never thought I would say something like that one day, but I'm going to say it. I think Lamine Yamal can be as good as Messi has been. So I guess time will tell.
I'm just excited to see what the next 15 years bring.
For sure. And sticking with Miami and Messi, Jorge Mas says that the club revenue has nearly quadrupled to nearly $200 million. How big a deal is this, guy?
It's a lot of money. I think it's obvious it's Messi related because their TV contract, apparently the TV revenue component is only $8 million.
Right.
So where does the other money come from? I don't know, because they don't publish accounts like European clubs do. So it's kind of a mystery. We kind of have to assume that Jorge Mas is telling the truth because there's no real accountability there, at least certainly not to the level that you have with European clubs. Obviously, Messi's a big part of it. What you want to know is, okay, this revenue that you're making, the sponsorship that's coming in because of Messi, does it then go straight back out to Lionel Messi?
Yeah.
And how much of this becomes sustainable going forward? Obviously, they also have really high ticket prices. I think the highest ticket prices in the world. However, again, you're playing in a tiny stadium. Maybe that'll change with a bigger stadium. I don't know. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's a nice headline figure. Obviously, had a tremendous impact. What it says for the game and the team in Miami longer term, I think that's all to be determined. Nasty story from the championship as Preston's Miucin Osmaik is accused of biting Blackburn's Owen Beck, who you may remember from Liverpool. I think he's still on their books. He's on loan.
Yeah, he's on loan.
Jules, I'll let you make the Luis Suarez joke here.
I mean, Osmaik clearly channeling his Luis Suarez, and he looks so obvious. And the referee is so close because they're like a get-together, and because Beck kicked one of Preston's players, and then he got sent off. And then just a yellow for Osmaik for getting into the argy-bargy, not for the biting. And Beck is saying to the ref, look, I've got the bite. Look, it's bite me. I can show you. And the referee not wanting to hear any of it. I just find those moments. I mean, why would you bite in the first place unless you're like 6 months old and a nursery? Well, you don't have 1 year old at nursery or 2 years old at nursery, and sometimes you let yourself go. I just don't know.
That's a question for Luisito Suarez.
Yeah, exactly. Valencia beat Girona 2-0 for the first victory of the season. Gab, you want to talk Ruben Baraja or explain why it's 3 defeats in a row now for Girona?
I want to talk Ruben Baraja, although the Girona story shows how difficult it is to repeat. And obviously the Champions League took a lot out of all stuff. But I think what's happened to Valencia over the last 5 years, 10 years since that Peter Lim came in is pretty awful. I think the fans deserve so much better. That it's surreal. This is still, it's a story that's just so messed up. One of the great teams in European football still have that stupid half-built stadium. Yeah. Hey, Peter, Mr. Remizia, why don't you finish the stadium? Or why don't you, better yet, why don't you get out? Right? Which he's refusing to do because he's hard-headed. It's awful what that family's done to Valencia. I'm glad the players get a little bit of respite. It's their first win of the season, as I said. I think they're in serious danger of going down because all that happens every summer is they just gut the team. Mamardashvili's still there, but he'll be gone. Obviously, he's a Liverpool player. Yeah. And it's sad. And this should be by fan base the fourth or fifth biggest team in Spain, and to be treated like this, to have such an awful cartoon villain of an owner is just terrible. First, they were gutted by his agent friends. Now he doesn't care anymore. Now he's just running it into the ground. Manuel Lanzini scores the only goal as River Plate beat Boca Juniors 1-0 in the Super Clásico at La Bombonera. Jules, this was intense.
Yeah, it was. As you would expect. To be fair, I had completely missed out that Lanzini played for River Plate now, and I found out watching the highlights of this game. To go away and win it like that, very famous win for River. Crazy scenes with, as always, a red card, a bit of fighting. There was a lot of the usual, I think.
Sergio Romero got into a fight with a former Monaco goalkeeper and Manchester United. He got into a fight with a Boca fan after the game. But again, he went out, he apologized. And he said something that I wish more footballers would heed. He said, I apologize. I lost my cool. I don't know what happened. He's paid his ticket. He has every right to say what he wants. Yeah. You do. People don't seem to understand this free speech thing. I'm not saying it doesn't have consequences. If you say horrendous things, you're a bad person and it's wrong for you to say them. But you can't answer with violence. And well done, Sergio Romero, for owning up to that afterwards. Leipzig
are held to a 0-0 draw away at San Paoli. Gab, not just a bad result, a bad performance too.
A terrible performance. And in fact, you're now like putting everything back in context, the sort of Marco Rosa thing. Their game in midweek as well. Like, you were praising Atleti before, but maybe like they just aren't that good. I don't understand with that.
But good players, though, not to be that good. You know what I mean?
Good players, but how does it not all come together? And defensively as well. Yeah. I know Simakan's gone, but come on, you've got other people. Also, it's Simakan. It's not. With all due respect, it's not Beckenbauer, right? It's funny. I was wondering, who can I bring up? We were both going to say Beckenbauer. Who else are we going to say? I think a lot of people are happy that Leipzig, for obvious reasons, this is the most disliked club in Europe. But equally, Rosa needs to sort this out, and because he really has a lot of resources.